do you need to drop the shield?
The shield. Are we talking the NFL shield? Are we talking
Star Wars.
Star Wars, Captain America? What I mean,
Their shields are
you are totally getting into movie warfare.
Oh,
stuff
you could
here.
go 1,000 places with dropping the shield. Medieval knights and their shields, space shields, and yeah.
Okay, I'm interested in seeing where you go with this question as we finish up our 4-episode series. And we're kind of finding our groove here video-wise.
Mhm.
By the way, nice to see you again. I haven't seen you for a little while.
It's kind of fun to join together on video and do these. And
I mean, we used to do all the audio together in person, and this is definitely different. But
yep.
I don't know. Apparently, it's working.
I love it. We'll keep rolling. It's good.
Yeah.
It's all part of adjusting and adapting, and it's just a great process. But this shield question.
The shield question. We're finishing up The Good Life.
Yes.
Our Good Life series, the book, The Good Life. Largest longitudinal happiness study, 85 years, 700 plus families. It's all about relationships.
Yep.
What say you, Nate?
That's the secret. So the shield thing, it gets to this idea of the happiness. And if the secret is really with the relationships, then one of the biggest mistakes that parents make is they treat it like it's not about the relationship, like it's about what happens to their kids and the achievements they get. And so it's throwing up that shield. And there's lots of different, the helicopter parent, the snowplow parent. We talk about a lot of those different ones. But we mentioned a few episodes ago where we specifically talked about how the good life it does not equate to the easy life. The easy life is not the good life.
A hard truth.
Life, right. The hard life is not a bad life. And that idea of do we need to drop the shield is an invitation for all of us as parents to take a step back and look at how we're using the adversity that our kids experience to help them learn about the good life. And by protecting them from problems, by protecting them from some of these things, by sometimes protecting them from consequences of bad decisions, it can cause some issues. So I wanted to get into this idea because I think dropping the shield is a great way to approach this and invite each of us as parents to step back and say, am I shielding my kids from the things that may actually improve our relationships as we work through them together, and also, help them grow the strength they need to go out and make it on their own.
Right. So before you go deeper into how they do drop the shield, what are you not saying here? Because I hope nobody's thinking that because we talk about this all the time with Stop Parenting and Start Coaching, that we are not just becoming hands-off parents.
No, it's realizing it. So much of it's the perspective shift. Something negative happens to your kid. Your kid gets benched in the sport that they play. They don't get the lead role in the play that they tried out for. They get cut from, performing arts group that, they're really good, but it's like an elite team and it just timing wasn't right or something. Something happens to them. Is your perspective as a parent, this is wrong, this is unjust, this is unfair, which you could do, because in a lot of cases, there might be an unfair thing. It might be unjust. But are you shielding them, or are you using it as an opportunity to learn and grow closer together with your teen athlete or performer? And that's what go ahead.
How do you balance protecting your teen and not shielding them from growth opportunities?
Get really clear about what you will shield them from, and then everything else you just deal with. Physical harm, great. Let's keep our kids alive. That's a good thing.
Right.
But even if you get into the emotional challenges, and this is where parents feel justified in going to the admin and complaining about that coach, and he's abusive. Abusive is a term we throw around pretty lightly now, with how I get frustrated sometimes when parents tell me that another coach is being abusive, and I know the coach and I know how he does things, and I'm like, I don't he's not being abusive, but he's making some hard decisions that are putting their kids in a tough spot that are emotionally challenging for them. And so it's a perspective thing. And I will always advocate, if somebody is harming your child in a significant and impactful way, you should say something about it. But when it comes to the emotional stuff, like, how you handle that as a parent is going to go a long way towards how your kids are going to handle problems that come up in their lives. Are they going to blame somebody else for it, or are they going to try to own what's going on in their own? And at the end of the day, we can only control what we can control. And so are we teaching our kids to focus on what we can control and then do the best we can to move forward?
Once again,
I know that's tough, because it
is tough, but you're speaking to playing the long game there. And we wanted, in the short term, we want to just jump in. We want to throw up the shield. We want to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
That often leads to a long-term detriment.
Yeah. The metaphor that I love, and it's very old and it gets talked about a lot, but that whole idea of somebody seeing a moth in a cocoon.
Oh, I love the moth in the cocoon.
Yeah, the moth in the cocoon, and the moth is struggling to get out. And so the person watching, it's like, oh, well, I should help it. And so they get a little knife or a scalpel or something, and they just loosen it up, and they allow the moth to get out. But the moth ends up dying, because what makes the moth ready to leave and fly off on its own and live its own life is the struggle to get out of the cocoon. And that's such a powerful parenting metaphor, because we want so bad as parents, because we love our kids so much. We want to loosen that cocoon up. We want to weaken that bond on them just a little bit so they don't have to struggle quite that hard to get out. But it's the struggle that makes them powerful. And that's
yeah, it's so good. Inevitably, when you hear an athlete talk about, well, you especially hear it in championship game or match interviews, and they talk about the journey to that point. You never hear an athlete say that, well, we had this really easy stretch, and that's what led us to where we are today. That's why we have the trophy. Inevitably, in fact, I kind of get tired of hearing it, because it's so repetitive, and I'm really old, and I've listened to a lot of these interviews because I'm a sports fan and coach and player. But you hear this common refrain, which is, well, we went through so much adversity this year. And that's actually, those are the growth opportunities that help them to get to that point. I'm sure there's an easy road championship probably somewhere, but how meaningful is that?
And how rewarding is it?
Yeah, it's
like, if you look back on it, like if you run through a JV league as a varsity team and you win the championship and you go undefeated, it's like, yay, we have a championship, but we beat on the weak sisters of the poor to get there.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you why is it dangerous to shield our kids, but I think you just I think through the moth and the cocoon, I think we've covered that pretty well. Here's a performance question for you. Can dropping the shield actually help our teens to perform better in high pressure situations?
I would argue that it can. I think that there's a real benefit that they get, because they learn that they have the power to perform in a tough situation. They can fight through adversity. They're down 5 points with 2 minutes to go in a game. They have something to draw on. It's like, I've done this before. Because that's, you hear this said sometimes, confidence is a result. And it's a result of struggling and overcoming. I know I can bounce back before because I've been behind the 8 ball and I found a way to come back. I've been out of energy in a race and I found a way to finish strong anyway. I've been behind at the end of a game and found a way to come back. I got cut from the play that I tried out for, and I got better and I came back and I got the lead role in the next one. Like, that's where confidence comes from. And when we protect them too much from the challenge, sometimes we end up robbing them of the confidence that they get from overcoming.
This reminds me, I may have told this story before, but this so reminds me of an experience I had between my freshman and sophomore year, where my high school coach invited me to come play with the older kids, the varsity kids, during a summer league. And this was not, as far as I know, nobody else, he had never done this before. And at the time, I just thought, well, this is really cool. I didn't really appreciate it till later. I went from being one of the better players in my age group and always being successful and performing well and executing from a skill perspective at a high level, to all of a sudden now I'm playing against bigger, stronger, faster, better players, wiser players, more experienced players. And they were some of them much better than me. And all of a sudden now I'm this kid that, instead of looking to shoot and score, I'm supposed to pass the ball and not let my guy score every time down the court and find my way. And it was a completely different mindset. And I look back on it now, in a sense, my coach dropped the shield, and I had to battle and learn. And it wasn't apparent how much it helped me, because I wasn't always through. It was fun to go play with them. I would go home from those games going, yikes, I need to be better here. I need to do this better. This was tough. And I'm used to being able to do these things fairly easily in my own age group, and it's not easy. It wasn't until the next basketball season, because I grew up back in the day when you played the sport, in the season. So after football season, here comes basketball. It really became apparent that I had made a jump, that I had improved quite a bit. And so, and I was not babied. I mean, there was nobody coming to help me break through the cocoon there. It was like, no, struggle, strengthen those wings.
Larry Bird's not walking through that door.
Larry Bird's not walking through that door. Yeah, so boy, it's tough. It's tough to drop the shield, though. We're not saying it's easy.
Yeah,
because you love your kids.
Much. You love and watching your kids suffer and struggle sucks. It just sucks. There's no nice way, and so we totally get that. You want to go help them. And this is, again, we're the Stop Parenting, Start Coaching podcast. Be a coach. Help them get through that situation by asking them great questions, using some great tools that you have, using your experience, and encourage, empathize, empower, help them to grow, equip them for the journey. And it'll pay off in the long run. You're playing the long game with the strategy, but man, it pays off big time in the long run.
I love it. You threw in the reference to the Triple E toolkit there.
Yep. Yeah, the tools that we've created and that we've got available for everybody, those are there to help you be the best parent you could be. And we're hoping that you're going to capture those things and use them, because these relationships are the key to happiness for you and your kids.
For sure. Speaking of that, we're going to run through a little list, if that's okay, Nate, where this is where I nerd out, because we are getting into the practical application. Like, what is something that you can actually do right now as a mom, as a dad, as parents, to get closer to that happiness, to enlarge that happiness that you have, that's based in the relationship with your teen. And regardless of where you are, these are things that you can try. I mean, we're all at different points in our journey, so you may already have a great relationship. Well, let's elevate that even more. Maybe you were in the beginning stages, and maybe even it's undergoing some repair, but what is something that we can do right now to help? So I'm going to start you off with I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
And we put together some, I hope, very valuable tips.
There's
And
some great ideas.
Okay, so prioritizing time together. How do you prioritize time together? Give me one tip.
Great example of how you could do this. Just decide to have that tech-free dinner. Everybody, you just spend some quality time together and communicate openly.
The phone basket pops up again.
Mm-hmm. Just, something that might
do you
help.
think we're going to have a bunch of listeners that wives are sending their husbands to the craft store to buy a nice wicker basket?
Maybe we're responsible for a bump in the economy, or at least an improvement in the bottom line at Hobby Lobby or something.
There we go. I like it.
So I got one for you.
Okay.
What would be a great way that somebody could be a more active or a better active listener?
When your teen comes to you and is excited about something, or maybe they're even concerned about something, it could be something from a recent practice or game. Intentionally put your phone away and then make eye contact.
That's a very good research-based strategy too, by the way.
Not so easy to do.
No.
We are so, our phones are glued to our hands. So yeah. Okay, I've got one for you. This one is right up Nate Crandall's alley. For sure. How can you express appreciation?
So this is where being a great observer is really powerful as a parent. Showing appreciation is you got to notice something that they're doing that maybe you've encouraged them to do in the past, or something that's meaningful for somebody else. You see them do something, compliment them on specific things that you see them do. I really appreciate that you went and did the dishes without being asked. That's really cool. And I don't even have to nag you now. That's great. So thank you for doing that. Because they expect their parents to give them the platitudes, like after a game. Oh, you're so great. We love you. You're such a good player. That doesn't mean much. But if you can say, hey, you remember that play in the second quarter when there was a loose ball and you dove on the floor and you saved it and ended up being a bucket for your team? That was an awesome play. That communicates a lot more to your kid than just, oh, you're such a wonderful player.
Great job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great job. Like, it's great to say, but it's that, can you give the specifics? So when you're expressing appreciation for your kids, don't just say thank you, say thank you for something specific.
Love it.
That you've seen them do. So Steve, we've talked about traditions. What's an example of a tradition that somebody could start that might help them?
Well, I think this can be challenging because you want buy-in from the kids and or teens. It may not be great to just come down as the king or queen and make a decree that this is the new tradition. But what if you asked your kids something that you've done recently in the last year that maybe is not a tradition, but something that you've done that they would really love to do again? That could give you the answer right there for something that may become a really cool family tradition.
Yeah, I think that's great. What's something you love that we've done the last year that you'd love to do again? Really good.
Yes. Okay, now we're getting to some E words here. You're going to jump all over this.
Yay.
How do you encourage emotional openness? Boy, sometimes teens just clam up.
Sometimes you have to let them climb up to get them to open up later. I've always been a fan of the conversation that goes something like this. You seem really emotional about something, and not necessarily even labeling the emotion itself. Like, don't say you seem upset or sad.
Right.
You seem really emotional about something. Would you like to talk about what's going on? And if they say yes, great. Now you've opened the door and they'll share. If they say no, you can say, okay, just know that I'm here for you when you want to talk about it. Or is there a better time to talk about this? And just that follow up question, just where you now leave the door open for when they're ready, or if there's a specific time when they think they might be ready, then you can have a more emotionally involved conversation. So I think that's a good way to approach it. We've got the QOC tool, which is a really, really good
Dynamite.
way. Yeah, really good way of getting to the emotional openness as well. So go check that out and look there for several opportunities to just employ that with your teen. And it's a process. You have to be, because they do have that tendency to climb up sometimes. And sometimes it's okay to just take a step back and say, oh, that's okay. You know, I can tell there's something that's really on your mind. You seem really emotional about it, but I'm here for you. And that little step can also help increase the openness. One thing I think that helps too is supporting each other's interests. What are some ways that you could think of that you could support each other's interests within your family more?
Well, I'm pretty biased on this because I grew up with a father who never missed any of my sporting events, even
Wow.
through 2 years of college football, and just traveled and made time. And he was in a profession where he had the flexibility, but still it was a lot of miles, a lot of time. So if you, and I know it's not always possible, but I want to applaud all the parents out there, because we see them in the stands as over the years as coaches. Like, you see parents making the effort to attend their teams' performances,
Yeah.
and to attend their games. And I mean, you'll have a mom over there at practice and she's reading a book in the car. And I mean, parents really do put in the time. So support your kids in their activities, show some genuine enthusiasm and interest there. But then on the other side of it is encourage your teens to support you in, and this might be in hobbies or an interest, or it might be even something that you are, uh, you're in a public setting or whatever, and you make it a family affair. And I think that goes, if there's some give and take there and support both ways, that's going to strengthen the relationship for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Good idea.
Okay, speaking of that, I know one thing that we talk about in our family coaching model is the concept of service
Mm.
and serving together. We think the world would be a better place if there was more service and more volunteering. And I know when I'm in those situations, you never walk away feeling bad. At least
Yeah.
I never have. It's great. But how can you do this as a joint project together? Like, what would be an example?
Um, well, like you talked about before, how involving the kids is a really good thing here, and every family is going to have a little different approach to it. But talking to your kids about what they think might be some great ideas for doing service would be fine. Like a family secret Santa kind of thing. You know, maybe it's sitting them down and saying, "Hey, who's a family in our neighborhood that might be struggling this Christmas, and what can we do for them?"
I know somebody that did that, Nate,
Tell me about it.
from early on. It's somebody we know. I'm not going to embarrass him, but it was actually a truly secret family activity that they started when their kids were very young and continued on through high school. They maybe even still are doing it, but it was I know it helped grow their relationships, and it also taught great lessons to the kids, because they would identify a family, and they would find out what they needed, and they would take them the gifts personally. The
Wow.
kids would take them the gifts, not the parents. And so the kids would see the recipient and they would also see the tough circumstances that the family was enduring, and it helped them to gain appreciation for what they had. Anyway, that was just
That's really cool.
specific one I feel like was good to call out, because it was so powerful for those kids.
Yeah. And there's lots of opportunities like that too. And your kids often have great ideas too. So don't be afraid to loop them in and come up with some even better ideas. Last one that I wanted to ask about is, how do you model positive relationships really well?
Well, these relationships are so founded in good communication and meaningful conversation. So here's a simple one. And I'm mainly doing this because it's something I am continuing to work on.
Yeah.
And I continue to work on it with you too, in our both ways. But when you are talking with your spouse, put down your phone and have a meaningful conversation. Even if it's just like, it might just be something in passing in the kitchen and one of you is scrolling. Find a way to gently put the phone aside, look at each other, and have a conversation. I think if your kids see you do this, that's so much more. Back to I can't remember which episode you were talking about, show versus tell.
Mm-hmm.
This is a true show versus tell here. They see you doing this, they are more apt to do it than if they watch you just continue to have these subpar conversations all the time while somebody is, on their phone. I think they're less likely to do it.
Great idea.
So we are going to wrap this up. We encourage you to go read The Good Life. There is there's plenty in there for just, if you like the practical, and there's plenty in there if you like the nerdy research over 85 years and all of the questions and things they've done with these 700 plus families, measuring their happiness, and there are so many good stories in there about these people that are really quite interesting, because they started this started with 1938, and so you have these two different generations and lots of really interesting stuff. But it's all about the relationships. I just thought of something that happened to me, Nate, that I think is worth bringing up, and that is, I recently just had a connection with a former player that back from when we were coaching together, 15 years ago, or 16 years ago. And he connected with me on social media, and we just had a conversation back and forth, and something that was really cool, because he's now a dad. He's been through life, and he's actually endured some really challenging circumstances. And he thanked me for life lessons and, the effort I put in as a coach. But the part that really stuck out to me was, he said that he didn't really remember the games and the scores. And he played on a successful team, and he was a very good player. But what he remembered was our relationships. That's what he remembers, and it put a smile on his face. I mean, if that's a great way to say that it's achievements are awesome, possessions are awesome. They both can feed into great relationships, but really the relationship needs to be number one.
Yep. Yeah, what a beautiful way to wrap it up. That's the secret.
That is the secret, the big R.
Yep.
I don't know what's going to happen in episode 54, but I look forward to seeing you again, and hoping that all of our listeners tune in. If you love this, share this.
Thanks for all you do.
See ya.
On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you'll find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.